Okay, so solve by factoring. This is what we learned how to do on Monday. We learned how to factor this trinomial on the left, and then Tuesday we learned how to solve an equation that includes a trinomial like this one we see here. So when you don't see a number in front of this x squared, it's just a 1, and the two factors of x squared, our only choices are just 1 and 1, right? But for 4, you got to think of different combinations. You can multiply 1 and 4 to get 4. You can multiply 2 and 2 to get 4. But then if you also notice that there's a subtraction sign here in front of the 5x, well, that tells us something about the signs of our factors of 4. So I want these factors of 4 to add to -5, which means these both have to be negative because the product is positive. So this is going to be two negative numbers here, either -1 and -4 or -2 and -2. And so if you just kind of guess and check and go through those possibilities, I'm going to show some responses here. You should be able to figure out that -1 and -4 work. And so you just multiply on a diagonal. 1 times -1 is -1. 1 times -4 is -4. Add these together. If you get -5, that's what you wanted. Now you can write your factors out. And you just read it straight across. So 1x -1. 1x -1. From left to right. 1 giant x -1. That's where this comes from. 1 giant x -4. And you set them both to 0. And then it's going to be one of these two things. This is the zero product property. So it's either this or this. Solving each of these, you do inverse operations. If you add 4 to both sides, x is equal to 4. You add 1 to both sides here, x is equal to 1. So these are the two solutions, and then you can check your work, plugging those values back in wherever there's an x, put a 4 in those two spots, and simplifying it, and yes, it does work. Wherever there's an x, try putting a 1. Simplifying this, and yes, it does work. Okay, so this is a good job here showing that method I taught you guys, and we're going to use the same exact method today. And this is a good example of showing you checking your work. Really good. All right, so do you have questions on this? We're going to look at ones that are a little bit different. So now we're going to see when there's not just a 1 here, maybe there's some other number. So this is still our unit on factoring. It's a 2-week unit that we're doing on factoring just to make up for learning loss from algebra. And this lesson is on solving equations by factoring ax squared plus bx plus c. Learning goals. I can factor quadratic expressions. I can solve quadratic equations by factoring to reveal the zeros. Okay, so we're just going to look at quadratic trinomial expressions today. Okay, notice there's no equal signs. These are not equations. Tomorrow we'll solve equations, but right now we're just going to practice factoring a trinomial when it's a quadratic trinomial and the number in front of the x squared term is not just 1 anymore, it's something else. So here I have a 6x squared plus 5x plus 1. You want to write the factors of 6 below it, 2 factors that multiply to 6 below it, and you also want to write 2 factors that multiply to 1 below it. And you want it to be such that when we cross multiply with our factors and add them, we get 5. So there's a little bit of guessing and checking going on. With this one though, notice we have addition for both operations, which tells us both of these factors are going to be positive. And I'm limited here. Factors of 1, that means it's going to be 1 and 1. So we can fill those ones in first because you know what they are. So you put a 1 and a 1 underneath the 1. And then thinking about factors of 6. 2 and 3, 1 and 6. So it's basically guess and check. Let's try 2 and 3. And we'll cross multiply to see what happens. Do 3 times 1. So it'll give me 3. And then we're going to try 2 times 1, which gives me 2. And then the question is, if I add these, do I get 5? Yes, I do. And that's a really weird addition sign. So that's exactly what I want to happen. That's this coefficient here. So that means I found the factors I need. And you just read it straight across. Okay, so the first factor is now 2x positive 1. So when you write that out, 2x positive 1 or plus 1. And then our next factor, just reading it from left to right, 3x positive 1. So it's the same exact method that we were using before, but now we're able to deal with the coefficient in front of x squared that's not just 1. And we're going to check our work the same way that we did before as well. We're going to check our work with FOIL. And so FOIL stands for first, outside, inside, and last, which means I'm going to multiply those pairs of terms from my factored possible expression here. So the first terms are just the 2x and the 3x multiplied together. Which gives me 6x times x, or 6x to the second power. The outside terms are the furthest on the outside. So 2x and 1 multiplied together, which is just 2x. The inside terms, the innermost terms, 1 and 3x multiplied together, which is 3x. And then the last terms of each binomial, so 1 and 1 multiplied together. Now, whenever you're doing this method to check with FOIL, combine your like terms. So right here, we can see that 3x and 2x are the same type of term. They add together to give me 5x. And then you want to see, is that exactly what we started with? 6x squared, 5x, and 1, were those being added together? Yes, 6x squared, 5x, and 1. So it does check out. That is really the factored expression for that quadratic trinomial. And so right now we're just practicing factoring. Tomorrow it'll be in an equation. And so then we can use this method to solve an equation by setting each factor to 0, just like we did on Tuesday. Yeah. Yeah, when I taught how to factor these to my algebra class, I used a method that I found online. It's a lot longer. This is much, much shorter. So it's a lot less work. Look at the next one now. So 4x squared minus 8x plus 3. So we need to write two factors underneath the 4 that multiply to give me 4. We also need to write two factors under the 3 that multiply to give me 3. Such that when I do this cross multiplication and I add these products, I'll get negative 8. So with this method, it's kind of guess and check, okay? Pay attention to the signs of the operations. You have subtraction and addition, which means that this has to be positive, okay? So this could be positive, positive, or it could be negative, negative, but the only way I can add and get a negative is if they're both negative. So for this case, since this is positive, these are both going to be negative. So you can put in the symbols. And as far as factors of 3, the only pair of factors we have that multiply to give us 3 are 1 and 3. So we're going to be using 1 and 3. And now for over here, I could try 2 and 2. I could try 1 and 4. You just try it. If it works, then great. If it doesn't, try something else. If you try 1 and 4, and you do 1 times 4 is negative 4. And then you try 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. Okay, that's not going to add to negative 8. So that won't work. So I'm going to try the other pair of factors, 2 and 2. Now 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. If I add these guys, this will work. This will give me negative 8. That's what I want to happen. Negative 8, that's this number right here. That's what I wanted to happen. So I found the factor pairs. And you just read it from left to right. 2x minus 1. Second factor from left to right. 2x minus 3. So when you're multiplying on the diagonal, but when you're writing out the factors, you read it from left to right straight across. And check your work. It's always a good idea. First terms. Two x and 2x multiply. Multiply them together, we're going to get 4x to the second power. That's good, because that's what's up here, 4x squared. Outside terms, 2x and negative 3. negative 6x inside, negative 1 and 2x. Those multiply to give me negative 2x. Those are like terms, so I'll be able to add these together. Negative 6x plus negative 2x is negative 8x. So I just have to check that the last terms do multiply to give me positive 3, which are negative 1 and negative 3, and they do. You guys have any questions so far? Where stuff came from? How we're doing this? Okay, so the last one we'll do together, 2x squared minus 9x minus 81. So, you know, you have to write two factors under the coefficient of the x squared term that multiply to give you that term, 2. And then underneath negative 81, we have to come up with two factors that multiply to give me negative 81. But it has to work out such that when I cross multiply and I add those products, I get negative 9. So if you look at these signs, the first 2 is positive. This is subtraction. This is subtraction. So this tells me that under 81, I'm going to have one positive and one negative. That's how I'll get a negative product, since these are positive out here. Since this is positive 2, really we're kind of stuck with 1 and 2 right here. So fill in the things with the least amount of like possibilities, I guess. You know, I could put 1 and then 2, or I could put 2 and then 1. It doesn't really matter, because when we do write out the two factors, you know, I could switch these factors around and it would still be the same answer. Same thing over here, and I forgot to box this answer. So I know one of these is going to be negative. One of these is going to be positive. I don't know if it's going to go that way. It might be positive first and then a negative. But think about the factors that multiply to give you 81. 1 and 81. It's probably not that one, because it's going to give you some kind of crazy numbers. 9 and 9 might work. 3 and 27. Just kind of playing around with the signs on those. So, you know, as I'm determining what to try first, since I do have to also deal with, you know, maybe having these in the wrong order, since 9 times 9 is a possibility, let's try that one, because it'll test both possibilities at the same time. You know what I mean? Because it wouldn't matter if I wrote the positive 9 up here and negative 9 here. You still have one of each. So we'll try this. 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. And then 1 times positive 9 is positive 9. If I add these, does that give me negative 9? I think it does. So that is what I wanted. So now I know my factors. My factors, you read from left to right. So top row, 1x, -9. Second factor, second row, 2x plus 9. You can circle them like I did on the first one if you want to. You don't have to. I was just kind of doing that to show you I was reading them, but you don't have to do that. 1x minus 9 and 2x plus 9. And you can check it using FOIL. First terms, 1x and 2x. Two x squared. That works. O, outside. One's on most outerness. 1x and 9. Just 9x. Inside. -9 and 2x. -18x. All right, and then the last multiplication of terms, or the last terms of each binomial. So -9 and 9, which is -81. Right, so this does work out. And you can show that when you add these guys together, you will get -9x.